Hello everyone. We have already discussed about clones. So in this lecture we'll be discussing about vectors used for cloning human DNA, and we'll focus on small insert vectors. So the perfect substrates for sequencing complex genomes, they are set of genomic DNA clones containing large inserts that have been linearly ordered according to the subchromosomal origins of these inserts, and series of such clones where the insert of each clone partly overlaps, that we saw in the previous lecture, that partly overlaps with that of its neighbor is known as a clone content, and it represents a contiguous or continuous DNA sequence from a whole chromosome or subchromosomal region. And in these contiguous clones, it was essentially important to place RFLPs. So we discussed that RFLP was the first genetic map. So RFLP was any DNA polymorphism. It was a single nucleotide change that resulted in either the creation of the restriction site or the loss of the restriction site. So that means the change of RFLP was actually occurring in the restriction enzyme site. Let's say this is the site of any restriction enzyme, and because of this SNP the site is created, so this will be cut, and because of another SNP at the same position, if the site is lost, so this will not be cut, digested by restriction enzyme, giving a length polymorphism in length. So RFLP they were also assayed with the help of restriction enzyme and initially hybridization probe, but now they are done with PCR followed by restriction digestion. Another important physical mapping marker was sequence tagged site, STS, and STS was any known unique DNA sequence we discussed in the previous lecture, and it is very easy to type STS by using PCR. And STS marker, it included both polymorphic markers as microsatellite that can be easily genotyped by PCR, and large number of non-polymorphic markers, but sequencing genomic DNA clones was essential to come up with these DNA markers. Now, which the sequencing part was not essentially involved with RFLP based map, but it was essentially important when we talk about STS markers. And apart from these, other markers which were used were from cDNA clones, and these were express sequence tags or EST. So ESTs they were important in cDNA libraries. We will see that in the later lectures. Now ESTs, these are express sequence tags. So expressed sequence tag, express means the genome, a part of the genome which is expressed or transcribed as mRNA, and ESTs, majority of the ESTs were derived from 3' UTRs, because these UTRs, they were not having introns. So since they were not having introns, the sequence of the UTR on mRNA and the sequence of the UTR on genomic DNA essentially matched with each other without intron. So ESTs, majority of the ESTs usually they represented 3' UTR region of the mRNA, and they also had a fixed position on the genome, and EST mapping of the ESTs on the genome was essentially coming up with mapping genes on the genome. So we will be dealing with small insert vectors. So DNA cloning can use bacteria as host, and advantages with bacteria all of us know is their rapid multiplication, and as foreign DNA sequence which we want to use for our purpose, so foreign DNA sequence which we wish to clone, it cannot replicate. So because it cannot replicate due to lack of functional origin of replication. So because it doesn't have origin of replication, so it had to be attached to a DNA replicon that has origin of replication, which will help it to propagate in the cell. So replicon that carried target DNA molecule into the cell and allowed its replication is called a vector molecule. So vector molecule will have a origin of replication. It will also contain our foreign DNA sequence. Now vector that has extra chromosomal origin and can replicate independently of host chromosome is useful, because we know that bacteria contains a single genomic DNA, and these vectors which we are referring to, they are basically, they have extra chromosomal origin and they replicate independently of host chromosome, because when the host chromosome replicates, it usually divides, the cell usually divides. But these extra chromosomal origin vectors, they are not dependent upon chromosomal replication. So extra chromosomal replicon can undergo several cycles of replication during a cell cycle and can reach high copy number, which is important when we are dealing with cloning vectors. While chromosomal DNA exists in a single copy. This help in their co-replication, and large copies of target DNA in the host cell can be maintained. Now, extra chromosomal DNA which is present in bacteria can be either plasmid or it can be bacteriophages, which is phage, which we can refer to them as phage also. So now plasmids, they are non-essential DNA molecules which are maintained in bacterial cells independently of chromosomal DNA. So plasmid DNA, they can be maintained in bacterial cell independent of the chromosomal DNA, and the transmission of plasmid DNA can be vertical. Vertical transmission means from parent to daughter cells. So they can be vertically transferred, so from parent to daughter cell, or can be transferred horizontally, that is transfer of nearby cells during conjugation. So that is horizontal transfer, and vertical transfer is from parent to daughter cell. They have single circular double-stranded DNA molecule, but some plasmid have linear DNA also. And their size can range from 2 kb to more than 200 kb. They can be high copy number plasmid, more than 100 copies per cell, or 1 or 2 copies per cell, that is low copy number plasmid. Most plasmid can coexist in a cell. So E. coli can have 3 different small plasmids at a time. One can be present in multiple copies, one large single copy plasmid. Natural bacterial plasmids are those that carry the sex factor F factor, and those that carry drug resistance gene. So when they carry sex factor and drug resistance gene, they are actually of benefit to the bacterial cell. So this is a plasmid. This is a general plasmid map. So we have selectable marker, we have antibiotic resistant gene, we have origin of replication. So these are important locations on the DNA for the plasmid DNA, which are important. And some plasmids can insert their DNA into the bacterial chromosome, that is referred as integration, or they can exist in 2 forms, as extra chromosomal replicons or as integrated plasmids, which are episomes. Now this is a bacteriophage. Bacteriophage or phage is bacteria infecting virus. So these viruses or phages can exist extracellularly but need bacterial host cell to multiply, as these are bacteriophages. They can have DNA or RNA as their genome, and their DNA genome can have double stranded or single stranded with linear or circular DNA, and their genome size ranges from few kilobases to few hundred kilobases. So they have larger we can say capacity of cloning our target gene as compared to the general plasmid vector. Their genome is encased in protein coat. We can see this is a protein coat where it can interact and bind with host receptor molecule. Bacteriophages infect, multiply and lyse the host bacterial cell to infect other cell, and their ability to infect new cell depend on the number of phage produced, which is burst size. Like plasmids, phages like phage lambda can also integrate into the host genome. An integrated phage is referred to as prophage. So these are cos or cohesive ends which are present in the phage, which help in the circularization of the phage DNA, and these are very important for using phage as cloning vector. So for using natural plasmids or phages as vector, they require genetic modification, they require some designing. So designing is required so that target restriction fragments can be inserted into a unique location that we call as multiple cloning site or MCS. So for usefulness of plasmid or phage as a vector, we need to have a multiple cloning site. So for accommodating different types of restriction fragments, it requires unique restriction sites that can provide a variety of possible cloning sites. So as we can see here, there are multiple restriction enzyme sites which can be cut, and the target gene can be inserted into this vector. For this, 2 long complementary oligonucleotides are synthesized, which when hybridized form 20 to 40 base pair polylinker sequence with multiple desired restriction site, which is then inserted into vector. Marker gene is inserted, which can be antibiotic resistant gene for selection or screening. It can confer resistance to ampicillin, chloramphenicol, kanamycin or tetracycline. So host bacterial cell is antibiotic sensitive, so only that bacterial cell that has taken up the plasmid would be antibiotic resistant. So that helps us in screening of the vector which contains screening of the host cell which contains the vector. So widely used screening assays use LAG-Z gene and involves blue-white colonies detection for beta-galactosidase, which is a product of LAG-Z. This is beta-galactose is coming after the LAC operon is on. So there are two ways in which we can use this LAC inducible operon for the insertion of the gene and its expression. So ideally what happens, this LAC-I is the gene which encodes a repressor. So this is a repressor protein. So this repressor binds with the operator, and when this repressor is bound to the operator, it doesn't let RNA polymerase to bind with this operon, and the LAC operon is shut off or it is not operating. When lactose or its analog, this is analog isopropyl beta D thiogalactoside, that is IPTG, when this is added, so either allolactose is present or IPTG is present, it's bind with this repressor. So repressor bound with this, these molecules are known as inducer. So when the repressor is bound to the inducer, it cannot bind the operator, leaving this site free for RNA polymerase to bind, and it initiates transcription of the genes, LAC-Z genes. There are 3 genes for beta-galactosidase. So these, the operon becomes on. So this is called as inducible operon. Now there are 2 forms which can be used. One in one form, the gene is inserted between this LAC-Z gene. So what happens, our target gene is present in the region which should have been actually for beta-galactosidase, and if the insert is sufficiently large, if the insert size is sufficiently large, so what will happen, if the LAC operon is on, because of our foreign gene, this beta-galactosidase will not be active. So because the gene, this LAC-Z region is acquired by the foreign gene. So what will happen if the operon is active, but this is this site is occupied by insert, so beta-galactosidase will not be produced. So what will happen when we will put it in the X-gal medium, since beta-galactosidase is not there, it will not be able to cleave X-gal, resulting in white colonies. We can see here there is mixture of white and blue colonies. We can clearly see some blue colonies are present and there are some white colonies. So white colonies are those colonies in which the gene, the target gene is present between this this LAC-Z gene, and because of this, inactive beta-galactosidase is present, which is not able to cleave this X-gal, resulting in white colonies. So white colonies shows that our insert is present in this particular plasmid. Now here another complementation method is used in which a part of the gene is deleted. So we can see that amino acid 11 to 41 are deleted here in this one, and here this is LAC-Z fragment which is present in the vector. So vector has a small fragment and the host has inactive, host is encoding inactive beta-galactosidase. So whenever the host will have the vector, then only the complementation will occur. So inactive beta-galactosidase will have the complete protein, which will result in all blue colonies. So this is a different case than this one. In this we are talking about insertional inactivation, and this is the case of complementation assay. So whatever assay is there, we will be able to come up with the clones which have taken up the foreign DNA. So now this, you can see here, these are random clones, because in this diagram if you see, these are random clones. It is very difficult to identify which clone is what. So for this we use this grid plate. So a grid plate has, as you can see, it has numbering of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 like that. So what do? We pick up a colony from here and then we inoculate it here. We put up a colony from here, we inoculate it here. So each random colony which is present here in this plate, it will have a particular number here. Okay, so now from this random thing we have got into a numbered or properly placed library. So this is a random plate. We won't be able to identify which clone we have used if we keep on using this plate, but when we come to this grid plate, it is easier to come up with this 1 is representing which clone, 2 is representing which clone, because we have given numbers to this. So this becomes a library. So if we are using here for insert, we are using genomic DNA clone, so it will become genomic DNA library. but it's obviously its size of insert will not be high. If we are using cDNA here to as our foreign DNA, it will become our cDNA library. So this will become library when we have properly numbered it, when we have already assigned the position, because even in book we have warehouses where majority of books are kept, but when we number it, it becomes a library. When we serially and orderly arrange it, it becomes a library. And here we see that after we have already done this cloning. Okay, after we have cloned our DNA, it is very important to insert this vector into a host cell. So transformation is the key step, and transformation can be done by heat shock. It is the most generally used method in all the labs, using heat shock method for uptake of the plasmid DNA in the vector. So, or it can be done by high voltage pulse, or it can be done by PEG mediated transformation. So after this is done, we will do this from random colonies we will come up with grid colonies, and we will allow it to incubate or allow it to grow for 24 hours at 37 degrees centigrade. Now this one number is now inoculated in the liquid medium. This is Luria broth. So this one number from a toothpick, you can pick up a small part of the bacteria and you can inoculate number 1 tube, giving it number 1. So this will become number 1, let's say. This will become number 2, this will become number 3, this will become number 4. So inoculations are done. These inoculations, after we do it in LB medium, we allow it to grow, and after that plasmid isolation is done from each of these cultures separately, and these plasmid after isolation, they are processed for sequencing. So when we come up with the sequence, we know that this is a sequence of clone number 1, this is a sequence of clone number 2, this is a sequence of clone number 3. So from unordered arrangement of this plate, we have moved on to ordered arrangement of this plate, and accordingly the same numbers are borne by these liquid cultures, and we know, okay, one particular one number contains what is the sequence information for 1 number clone here from this plate, what is the sequence information for 2 number plate from this point. So this becomes a library. So as we discussed in the previous slide, if you are placing your cDNA here, it will become a cDNA library, and if you are placing your genomic DNA here, it will become a genomic DNA library. So different clones will represent different parts of the DNA, either cDNA or the genomic DNA. So this is how we move ahead with cloning of smaller fragments. So this is a selected reading for cloning in bacteria.